All right, I'm not a drummer, but I do want to talk about Mike Mangini's instructional video called The Grid. In that instructional video, he talks about his thought process when he improvises. So it's all about improvisation, and it's a really good instructional video. Basically, he breaks it down into how he thinks about what he thinks about when he improvises. And in this video, I just want to share what I've learned because even though that I'm not a drummer, I think the things that he was talking about in that video can be applied to almost anything. So if you haven't seen that video, basically what he teaches is that so he outlined what the grid would look like. So in a whiteboard or on a whiteboard, he would have like a table, and he would write the different elements of drum playing. So for example, he would have a column for drum parts. So under that column would be snare, kick, toms, hi-hat, and cymbals. And another column for subdivisions, so 16th notes, triplets. And if you know who Mike Mangini is, you know that he can play from subdivisions of 1 all up to 20. I don't know how he does that, but he was able to do it. And he demonstrated it in the video as well. Another column for maybe rudiments. So under that column, paradiddle, double strokes, single strokes, double paradiddle, and etc. And so on and so forth. And what he would do, or basically what he taught in that video, is when you're improvising, or when he improvises, he would just think of one thing from that table or the grid, one thing from the grid. So for example, he would, when he would solo, let's say he would only think of snare. So he would only play the snare, but he would allow everything else to flow or to come out naturally. So, but in his mind, he was only thinking of snare. So he would do paradiddles, but just in the snare, and he would do like different subdivisions, and maybe he would do that for the first 4 measures, and then in the next measures, next set of 4 measures, he would like think about paradiddles, but he would be all over the kit and different combinations of paradiddles, paradiddles in the hi-hat, paradiddles with the toms and the snare, paradiddles with the kick. So that's how he would approach improvising, and I think it's a very good way to simplify your thinking and to remove all that mental clutter when you're improvising, because sometimes, especially when we're beginners, we tend to play everything. You know, when we're trying to improvise, we want to show off, like I have to do this flash lick, this, and after that I will do this sweeping lick, and after that I will do this tapping lick to impress anyone who's listening. But that concept of Mike Mangini's The Grid can be applied surely in the guitar as well. So in my understanding of it, from what I've learned, I made my own grid similar to his The Grid of drums. And I think I shared that in a second episode of the Guitar Talk series, when I called it the checklist. So the checklist was similar to the grid, or inspired by the grid. So in my version of the grid, I had like scales or notes. So I had diatonic scales, pentatonic, different arpeggios. And in another column, I would have subdivisions as well, because we can play subdivisions in the guitar. Another column, I would play ascending and descending. Another column, I would have different positions, strings, and octaves. So that was my version of the grid. And I think by applying that concept of the grid, just thinking of one thing when we're improvising helps us to improvise better. We just think of one thing, and you allow yourselves to let everything else flow naturally, come out. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration here. I'm just going to loop maybe an A minor vamp. So let's do that. let's say I'm gonna think about a technique. Let's say slides. I'll just think about slides and I'll just let everything flow. Let me use a distortion. So, in that example, I wasn't just doing slides, but in my mind, I was thinking of only slides. I would make it an effort to just think about slides, but I would allow everything else to flow. So if I feel like there's a legato lick in this area, and this is a very good way to like you know, when we improvise and we find ourselves lost, or maybe we run out of ideas, having that one thing in your head, because you know we sometimes there are times that we can get carried away by what we're playing, and by having that one thing in your mind, you can always go back to it. So let's say you get carried away, you were playing legato lick, you got lost, then you go back to the slides. And all the licks that come out naturally, like you know, let it come out. But you only have one thing in your mind. You're not mentally cluttered with all these different kinds of things. Let's try another example. Let's say I'll choose a sequence. Let's say sequence of 3 notes like this. So I'll only think of that. So whatever comes out naturally, I can think of sequence of 3 notes, but I can play it with arpeggios. I can play it with pentatonic scales. I can play it in 1 string or 1 position. I can play it in 16 notes or 16-note triplets. But in my mind, it's only sequence of 3 notes. So let's try that. So in that example, it's a very short one, but I was only thinking about sequence of 3 notes, but I played it in 1 position. I had breaks, I had like rests or pauses, and you can do that, you know, whatever comes out naturally. So it's a very cool way to approach improvising, and similar to the call and response method. Even though you don't really think about this when you're performing, this is still a good exercise for you to use when you're practicing to improve your improvisation game. So that is my take on Mike Mangini's The Grid. So you just have a chart or a table of all the different elements of music that you can think of, or that you want to apply. You categorize them in different columns, and then you just practice them. You just choose one of each category, one at a time. And you practice that, you loop a backing track, or you play a backing track in YouTube or wherever, and you just have that one thing in your mind, but you'll allow everything else to flow. So that is Mike Mangini's The Grid.